Hi, this is Greg with Lionquestfitness. There's an old saying, it's hard to surround a man with a barking 38 in his hand. On our particular scenario today, we had 3 rapscallions, armed rapscallions, and they were coming at an angle with this guy being the lead. All right, we hit 2 times here, okay. Then 3 had one low over here. We had 3 right here. We had 1 a little off. But all these shots were done with some semblance of movement, angles, trying to get a barrier between me and those rapscallions. And you be the judge. All right, what guns were we shooting today? In a Kramer holster, a Model 64, Smith & Wesson. Got the Altamont grips and the BK filler. And this one unfortunately has the notorious Hillary hole. The other gun in a Mika pocket holster, it's a Smith & Wesson J-frame, Model 36, 1977. So let's talk a little bit about the so-called New York reload. Now, the New York reload is the concept of having a revolver, that revolver running dry, and instead of trying to take the time to reload, to go ahead and draw another revolver. Now, obviously, this concept has been around for a long time, but it became particularly infamous during the time of the New York City Stakeout Squad. And we have to go back to a man named Jim Cirillo, who was a New York City police detective, and he was a member of that Stakeout Squad. And Cirillo in the beginning, carried a Model 10, similar to this Model 64. And he also carried as a backup, I believe, a Colt Cobra, which I don't have one, or perhaps a Colt Detective Special, which were both 6-shot revolvers. And the whole idea of creating that Stakeout Squad during that time period, 1968 through 1973, they had an epidemic of armed robberies in stores and shops in New York City, where store owners were being murdered, being shot, being pistol whipped, being beaten. And the police commissioner of that time decided to use officers to stake out these businesses. And they would wait in a back room, and if the robbers came in, they would go to work. Unfortunately, they were a little bit too successful in deleting many of these extremely violent and aggressive criminals. And when a liberal administration came in 73, they did away with the Stakeout Squad. But the idea of having one revolver and draw another revolver came to be known as the New York reload. So is a New York reload a practical thing today? And I have a friend named Dan the Wolfman, great channel by the way, and Dan, sometimes he pocket carries in both pockets. Now, I don't do that because my right pocket, I carry things, my flashlight, maybe another knife, a bandana, some ammunition to reload. I like to keep that pocket clear. But there's other ways to carry, such as an ankle holster or a cross straw. Now, if me personally, if I were carrying, and when the rare times I do carry 2 firearms, I'll carry one in a holster outside the belt, like this Taurus 856, and then I will carry a J-frame, usually an air weight, in my left front pocket. I am left-handed. But the problem is, you still have 2 guns that you have to keep up with and make sure they are secured. What if? Could you lose one in a struggle? Could you lose one if you had to run? Could you lose one by something mundane like going to the restroom? These are things you have to think about. Another thing that you have to look at is, what are the laws in your state? Are there laws against carrying two firearms? Would the courts in your jurisdiction frown on someone and a district attorney feel like that was premeditation to carry two firearms? Also, if you are living somewhere where you feel like you need more capacity, that a very dangerous area of our country, and they are those, I would tend to go with carrying something like this FN 40 caliber, 10 rounds. Now, my personal philosophy of self-defense, and this is why I mostly, key on that word mostly, carry a 5 or 6 shot snub-nosed revolver, is I want something to get me out of trouble quickly, to avoid trouble at all costs, but if it comes, to get out fast and exit stage left. So I tend to look at a gun like this as something to not to solve a problem, but to circumvent a problem, if that makes sense. So at times where I feel like I may need more capacity, that this is a dangerous area or circumstances that might require more capacity, something like this Ruger Security 9 Compact, very easily concealed. Once again, 10 rounds, easy to reload. But these are just my thoughts on the matter. So this is Greg with Lionquestfitness, reminding you, always look out for the unexpected.